Well, everybody, welcome to the Tridec uh, Donuts and Development. Sorry, I had to think about where we were and what we are doing. I'm Carl Dyke from Tridec. Thanks everybody for coming in. I always say that we have a packed house here in the boardroom, and today we really do actually have a packed house. We have our Hanford Outlook, and I think that's probably part of it, along with kicking off the new year. But everybody that joined us in person, thanks for coming in today. Everybody that's online, thanks for joining us. This is one of the member benefits that we put together for Tridec, as far as being able to have these direct conversations with so many of our partners, Hanford being a critical part of our economy. So I'd like to thank our distinguished panel for coming in today. I'll go down starting on my right, your left, with Brian Hartman. He's the project director from Bechtel National. Brian, good morning and thanks for coming in.
Good morning. Morning, everybody.
Happy New Year, I guess, actually. See you this year. And moving again to my left, I got to get my hands right over here. Carol Johnson is a president, program manager at H2C. And Carol, I always forget what H2C stands for.
Hanford Tank Waste Operations and Closure. That's a mouthful. That's why we call it H2C.
I appreciate the two because that makes up the other
Good morning, everybody.
Bob Wilkinson is the president of CPCCO and also a very proud Montana State Bobcat.
All right, national champs, get a little bit.
There you go. Thanks for coming in. Tom Fletcher is the COO at Hanford Mission Integration Solutions. Tom, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks. Welcome here.
Last but not least, and Ray, we appreciate your time this morning. Ray Garmer is, let me get your title right, site manager at the Hanford Field Office. Ray, good morning.
Good morning, thanks. Yeah, pretty boring title, isn't it?
Want to make sure I got it right. Here it is. That's right. And last but not least, our own David Replug. He's the vice president of our federal programs and also the executive director of Hanford Communities. Good morning, David.
Good morning.
Okay, well, Ray, you got here right on time. I'm going to pass the
baton.
Yep, all the way down. I think you're going to kick us off with a presentation, talking about giving us the overall picture, and then each of our group leaders will go into specifics on theirs, and then we'll open up for questions. So it's working.
All right, well, thanks everybody for having me here. I'm actually pretty happy to be able to report what's been going on because we've had a lot of really good stuff going on at Hanford, which I can't take very much credit for since I've only been on the job for not even quite 4 months yet. So, and it's been quite a whirlwind 4 months for me, I'll tell you that. The government shutdown was certainly my welcome to the job of being a government employee. So this is the first time I've ever been a government employee. I've been a contractor like these guys for 40 plus years. I turned 65 in November and said, what am I going to do next? And this job came up and I said, I'm going to take it. And my wife said, you're crazy. And I said, probably, but I did it anyway. So, but I did it because I think there's an exciting future here for Hanford. I want to be part of it. So let's talk about a little bit. I mean, I think all of you have seen, this over the years. We've made substantial progress over, the 3 decades now that we've been working out at Hanford. The numbers, kind of speak for themselves. Got the reactors almost completed. We got one more to go, and we're working. Bob's folks are working real hard trying to get that last reactor cleaned up and cocooned, and then we'll be done on the river. We got lots of groundwater treatment. We've, billions and billions of gallons of groundwater and tons of pollutants we've taken out of the groundwater. Lots of structures demolished. So substantial progress on cleaning up a lot of stuff out there. So funding has been actually pretty good. We, you can see we sort of hit a stable mark last year, but cross your fingers, it looks like we're going to get another uptick this year. According to all the tea leaves, we should be $3.4 billion. It looks like Senate's got to pass the bill today. And if Senate passes the bill today, then we're funded. And there's no more talk of shutdown for us for this year. So that's a pretty exciting thing. It's called a mini bus that they're doing. And I'm not sure what all's in it. I think 3 bills are getting passed. And DOE's one of them. So that'll be good for us. And that little plus up will be good as well. So I'm pretty excited about that. So just wanted to kind of, we are with the community, right? DOE is part of the community, the folks that work out there. This is probably a kind of a complicated chart to look at it, but it's just like, this is where all the folks that work in Hanford live, and they live in your communities. So, we're real important, I know, as an employer to the communities, but we're also, real important because we know we're a member of the communities and we want to have the interaction, with you folks in the community and be part of the community. So I don't know, did I say community enough times? So we're really excited about that. We're excited with this team. We've got obviously it's a pretty complicated site. There's a lot of different things going on and so many different things going on. It takes 6 different contractors to run it all. And so this is the one Hanford team. And what's really important about knowing that too is while all of these folks have a job to do that is their job to do, they also have interactions with each other that are critical. And there's handoffs between the different companies and Carol's and what's your name again? Brian.
That you replaced.
Yeah. Okay. And then you just say Brian, and anybody will answer that. It's Carol and Brian work together an awful lot on what's going on there. So it's really these guys do a great job coordinating with each other, working together, and so that's really important to making sure that we seamlessly get our job done. So I don't know if some of you missed it or not, but one of the big things that happened this year is we got a vitrification plant started. Did anybody, not catch that news? It was kind of a big deal. Something we've been working on for, just a couple of decades now. Really in earnest for about the last 10 or so, I guess, right? Where we really said, okay, this is for sure where we're heading and we're going to make this thing happen. And so that was a huge milestone. A heck of a lot of work put in by the work crews working on that project, the management leadership, guiding them through it, and really the involvement of the regulatory agencies as well. That was a really good experience of partnering the regulatory agencies together with the government, the federal agency and the contractor to make this thing happen. And, it got to the point at the end where I don't know if you saw it, where there was some kind of indication that maybe the project wouldn't go forward. And the state said, no, start that plant. And that's probably the first time in my life I've ever seen it the other way around, where the government wasn't saying, we want to start the plant, and the state was saying no, or somebody else was saying no. So that's just how important it was to the state, how much they were invested in making this thing happen. And so that was really, good to see and fun to see. And it's unfortunate we went through all that little misinformation phase, but we're definitely past it now. I'll just reaffirm the government is committed to running this LAW plant, making sure we keep making more glass. Right now, we're kind of still a startup phase. It's going well. There's some bumps, and so we're working. There's always bumps when you start something brand new up. I've done that a few times, and I've got a few bruises, but we'll get there. We'll be making tons and tons of glass and emptying out those tanks. So this was huge. And what's really important about this is now one thing that I think a lot of folks don't really understand is that we're basically limited in our capacity in the double shell tanks. So we'd love to be able to go retrieve a whole lot of waste out of the single shell tanks, but we don't have the space for it. And so we're constantly working at ways to try to create new tank space, and the LAW plant is one way of doing that. Carol also operates an evaporator facility. That's another way that we make space in there. So we're really trying hard to make space in the double shell tanks so that we can, progress with these tank retrievals. And right now you can see this is one of the tanks that has an ongoing retrieval right now. And how many gallons are in that tank that we're trying to retrieve? Remember the number offhand?
The one we're working on?
Yeah, the AP6, yeah.
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah, anyway, several 100,000 gallons that we're trying to get out of that tank.
Actually, a million gallons, but we de-inventoried it some.
So that's a really good look inside a tank to see, what you're really looking at inside of a high level waste tank and what the material. This is actually one of the easier ones. There's a whole lot of really harder ones to try to there's the really challenging stuff in some of these tanks, but these are some of the easier ones to kind of slurry this stuff up and pump it out of there. So another kind of big project that we've been working on for about 10 years, kind of quietly went on behind the LAW plant. And that's the cesium and strontium capsules that Bob and his folks have been working on this project for about 10 years now, to gear up. It's 1/3 of the total activity, the total of all the activity on site is in these cesium and strontium capsules. The cesium and the strontium were removed from the tanks decades ago and put into these little capsules. And these little capsules were stuck in a storage pool in what we call the WESIF facility. And so that those, that's a whole lot of radiation. I mean, this is the kind of radiation where if that pool were somehow drain out in the event of say an earthquake or something, that would be deadly radiation levels that would be exposed to. So really important to get these things out of that pool to remove that risk that something would happen there and these capsules would become exposed. And so anyway, that got started, and you've welded your first one shot, right? Is it
Welding out or lit as we speak.
yeah, welding it as we speak. Got the first one done. You can see the size of that cask. So you can see the tiny little cylinder. That's the capsule. That's the cesium capsule that remote arm is grabbing on the left. And you're putting those little capsules into a tube and then sticking those tubes into another container and then putting that container in that giant shielded package on the outside, right?
Yep,
So
that's 12 of those casts pull out for the cesium.
so there you go. So it's a pretty painstaking operation, a lot of years in the making, and a lot of technology and a lot of work into that. So that's really exciting that that's going on too. And it's going to be about 2 years or so, 3 years to get all of that stuff out of there and move
Yeah,
it.
well, the cesium out by 27, and then depending on what happens with the strontium on commercial viability, then we'll package those ones up and bring those ones out.
So outstanding stuff. I mentioned the water treatment. They put in some new water treatment capability this year, a new strip-in tower. So that's increasing the efficacy of operating the water treatment plant and treating the groundwater. Again, 2 billion gallons a year. I mean, it's almost getting like pedestrian to talk about. We did another 2 billion gallons again this year. So that's an amazing amount of water coming out of, I don't know, dozens, hundreds of wells across the site from various groundwater plumes scattered all over the site. So pretty amazing system of pipes running all across. Everywhere you drive out there, you see black pipes running across the ground, carrying groundwater to the groundwater plant. So big operation and doing a lot of good stuff. So all of that is kind of, all right, here's where we are now. We've done some really big things here recently. We've got some really big projects going. And so where do we go from here? So we're kind of at a bit of an inflection point. There's some exciting new stuff we're going to get started with. So one of the things is I think all you're aware, we've got this new agreement we made with the state and the EPA to go after the West area tanks. And do so with an idea of pre-treatment and then grouting the low activity waste that comes out of the West area. And so that's a huge, basically 15-year effort to go move like 32 million gallons worth of waste out of those tanks in the West area, grout that material and send it all off site for disposal at to be determined, but either Utah or Texas, two licensed radioactive waste disposal facilities we have available to us. It'll depend on pricing and the radiological content of the material, which one we use. The Utah one has a little tighter control. They can take lesser amounts of radioactivity. The one in Texas can take greater amounts of radioactivity. So between cost and radiological content will dictate where that material goes. So that'll be a huge project. There's a big RFP out right now for a commercial entity to come in and provide for us a grouting capability. We see folks have that RFP out on the street right now. That's advertised to be a $4 billion contract to somebody for the 15-year period. So that gives you kind of a sense of how big this opportunity is and how big this project is that we're getting ready to launch into. So that's the next really big thing. Another really big thing, though, that we're getting ready to get started is transuranic waste moving. It's something we started doing a few years ago, and then we quit. And I guess I don't know why, but certain priorities and circumstances. And so, we've been sitting on this transuranic waste for years. And now is the time to start moving it. WIP has been really concentrating on Idaho and a couple other places. Well, they're just about done with all of that stuff now. So now they're looking at us going, okay, we're ready for you guys. And now we're ready for them. So Bob's been busy with his team setting up platforms, mobile platforms that are going to certify all this transuranic waste. We'll load it into troop pack containers, and within the next couple of years, you're just going to see troop pack trucks. Does anybody know what troop packs look like, what the trucks look like? So they're big flatbeds, and they'll have these three big cylinders sitting on the back of them. And you'll start seeing them rolling through town here in a couple of years. And hopefully we'll get up to about 10 or 15 a week is the plan eventually. And we'll keep doing that probably, I don't know, what, 15 years, 20 years until we get all of that true waste out of here and down and placed into the woods. So that's kind of the cleanup side of that. And, you know, hand in hand with the cleanup side, as we get further into the cleanup and show we can, you know, handle these things, there's also reindustrialization is a huge topic right now in the department. And the department, folks in the department, we and some other folks have been working actively with the TRIDEC team on lots of different opportunities that might be coming. That maybe involve new types of energy production, whether that be gas-fired turbines, whether that be nuclear, small modular nuclear type facilities, and then there's the talk of data centers, and there's really a rollout by this administration now of a couple of things that they want to really progress. And DOE has been identified as the lead science agency for the department, for the government. And so there's a huge initiative right now to figure out, you know, what does that mean with regard to leading the nation into the future of and the science that we need. And a lot of it is based on AI and AI infrastructure. And so we're going to need a lot of data center to support all of that. And I know PNNL will become a big part of all of that. So you'll start hearing a lot more about something called Project Genesis. And that's the project that DOE is putting together that will be this leading revolution in the whole idea of scientific exploration. So that's pretty exciting. And then there's, you know, this whole move to new nuclear. You know, the other term you'll hear a lot is energy dominance. And I don't know if you've all heard that, but that's what the secretary talks about a lot is that, you know, and, you know, others in the government as well, the high up is, you know, we want to be in a position of energy dominance. Well, what does that mean? It means that we control all of the needs we have for energy, and we have all of the leading cutting edge technology, and we're, you know, leading the world in sustainable types of energy, and nuclear certainly has a place in that regime. Interestingly enough, 45 years ago, when I was a graduate from college as a chemical engineer, I thought I'm going to go into the nuclear energy field because I believe the future is nuclear energy. And I guess what I didn't realize, I was 45 years ahead of my time. But I think that's where we're at now. And so you'll be hearing a lot about that too. So it's a really exciting future for Hanford, both in the cleanup side and in the idea of reindustrialization and creating for our communities, you know, business that's really good business for the future, right? Setting up for real jobs and real opportunity, and putting the Tri-Cities area on the map is a great place to come for science and technology and all that kind of stuff that goes with it. So I think with that, I'll conclude my remarks. And I think I'm turning it over. So
Thanks, Ray. That was great.
I got one slide, so it's on it. So first of all,
I could have just kept the clicker.
yeah,
I got it.
wow, so Tom Fletcher, for those that don't know me, unlike Ray, I spent my whole first part of my career on the federal side. So no stranger to Hanford, but glad to be sitting in the role of CO on the contractor side and able to continue making a difference, which is why I started my career at Hanford. There is truly something unique about being part of the legacy of the Cold War all the way through production of plutonium and to where we are today, which is cleanup and getting back to allowing future use as we look to the future and the next generation of both worker and community citizen. From an HMIS standpoint, the easiest way to think of what we do in and day out is the city manager of Hanford. We manage everything from sewer and water, emergency services, land management to ecological resources, as well as provide a number of specialized craft and services to the other Hanford contractors. from an HMIS standpoint, we're only successful if the rest of my colleagues on this panel are successful. So we're an enabler to mission success, not a driver of mission success. And if you look at where we are and where we've come, 25 was a pivotal year, and 26, 27, and 28 will continue that success. We put on in December, we were able to start up the brand new water treatment facility. Two major things that comes from that. One, we're able to produce water at 3.5 million gallons a year, potable water for the Hanford site that really makes the future mission enabled. It really provides the future of potable water needs on the entirety of the Hanford site. The second piece of that, though, is probably equally as important in the world we live of safety, is it removes chlorine gas from the site, which is probably one of the major hazards, with the exception now of Brian's ammonia tank at the Hanford site from a chemical standpoint. So again, continue to reduce the hazard while increasing productivity and production. The other thing that you can see in one of these pictures is actually the start of the new 200 East fire station. So bringing the actual fire response closer to the vitrification plant, as well as the ongoing activities in 200 East. And then we still have the 200 area fire station in the 200 West area that'll provide that response as all the operations condense onto the Central Plateau. So again, major accomplishments there. And then of course our emergency services providing both guns and guards as well as fire response to the entirety of the Hanford site. From a people standpoint, we're a people first organization. I mean, as with all of us are, we can't do what we do without the people. So investing in our people as well as the community we live in is a critical part of our mission. So we provide a number of opportunities to nonprofits and development organizations like Tridec yearly through our investments as the business. And at the end of the day, we see ourselves as truly the helping hand, for lack of a better word, truly the enabler of making sure that the mission drivers, Bob and his cleanup, Carol in operations of tank farms, and Brian in operations of WTP can do their job day in and day out. And when I don't get a message from one of these guys sitting on the front line, I'm actually a happy day for me, because at the end of the day, we're doing what we need to do to enable their missions to be successful. So
sometimes we send you a thank you message.
we do, and those are. But as you all sometimes. So as we all know, the being able to address the challenges, and I think that's one thing that we do very, very well as a group, is we are able to sit down and communicate and address the challenges, and not just talk about the challenge, but actually find solutions. So matter of fact, I did that literally yesterday with our HLMI counterpart. So I think that's equally as important as the ability for this group to solve problems, and I think we're very, very good at that as a team. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bob.
All right, thanks, Tom. So Bob Wilkinson, I have the honor right now to be the president for Central Plateau Cleanup Company. Prior, I've been over at HMIS. Prior to that, I've been at a tank farm, so I've been maybe a gypsy around the land for my background. Ray's talked a lot about what we do, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time discussing that.
Sorry.
No, I appreciate it. So, at the end of the day, we do all the remediation activities that isn't associated with the tank farms. So if it's not associated with tank farms, we're doing it, whether that's tearing buildings down, whether that's digging up waste sites, whether that's treating groundwater. We're doing all those areas. We, at the end of the day, talk about interface and interactions. We take the final product, the glass product that's produced by Brian, and we store that for the long-term part of it. We have about 30 containers right now stored up on our thing that Brian's starting to send over to us on a regular basis. So we have all of those areas and those areas of emphasis. Been going on for a while. We've been doing cleanup at the Hanford site for quite a long period of time. And Ray did a great job kind of talking about some of the recent successes that we've had, starting the cesium capsules, pulling those out. We're at the last reactor from K area. I think we're in that last reactor because we had to get Ray out of K area to finish it. So I'm going to blame Ray for that. He's been living his life there. So
blame the last guy.
Yeah, blame the last guy. Why not? So been out there for a few years. So, but and we're down in the 324 facility, getting the 324 facility up and kind of a cleanup status. Where it's an interesting inflection point for the Hanford site from a remediation perspective is with the reactor K area being done, 324 being and kind of starting to look at its final status is we're really now able to really shrink the footprint down on this up what we call the central plateau in the near future. And it allows culturally wise quite a shift for our workforce, culturally wise for the department to be able to really have the conversations that he's having with Tridec about what are the other parts of things that can now where the land reuse really become a viable compartmentalized piece. So we're really at that crossroads over the next 5 years, as well as Ray talked about being pedestrian for the 2 billion gallons of water that's being treated from groundwater. That's been going on for a long time. Hence pedestrian, right? But that success is now bearing fruit that's really allowing us to start having conversations about what does the end look like for the groundwater below grade structure that allows the Department of Energy and the regulators, ecology, and EPA to really decide what can the end really be. We can now envision something that was so massive you just couldn't envision how you're going to get there to now you can potentially realize that capacity or capability. So it's a great time from an inflection on those areas while the tanks are going off to do what they're doing and step it up. So it's just a great time at the Hanford site from that perspective on what's going on. You can see all the different pictures we have on there. Just a couple of things I wanted to highlight on there. Bottom right is an excavator that we do that tear the building down, right? It's the exciting part of the job where you rip buildings down or shred them up. But the person sitting in that cab is not a CPC co employee, it's an HMIS employee. So we talk about that interaction and interface, and you hear about this one Hanford, and everybody always wonders about that. But at the end of the day, when we're out actually doing a job, in most cases it's usually 1, 2, or maybe even 3 different companies of employees working on that, as well as behind the background on the systems and software systems and the components is usually 1, 2, or 3 contractors at a minimum that's going on for us to be able to actually do the puppeteering that actually happens to where we can actually safely and efficiently execute what we often do. So there's a lot of interactions that we have associated with that. For us, really the next 5 years becomes continue to tear those building downs, knock that reactor down, shrink that footprint if we can. And as Ray said, start shipping true waste off this Hanford site to where we can actually get rid of our waste on the feed that feeds WIP in New Mexico and the prior they have to go off to do. So that's really the step change that we're seeing as we transition from last year into this next year and the next several years. So a lot of things to come for us. With that being said, I'll wrap it up and hand it over to Carol.
Okay. All right. Well, good morning again, everybody. I'm Carol Johnson, and I have the privilege of leading the Hanford Tank Farms mission. I'm kind of a recycled manager at Hanford. I had the River Corridor cleanup project many years ago and had the opportunity to come back and run this important work. One of the, I've been in the business a long time. If I tell you how long, then you'll be able to tell how old I am, and I'd rather you not know that.
I think she had to use an intern.
I knew what he was.
She knew what I was, yeah. It's all my fault for because she taught me it correct.
That's right. That's right. But I love the work and I love what I do. Going back a number of years, back in 1995, 96, I was at the Savannah River site and I had one of the tank farms there. We had multiple tank farm facilities and I had the scope of one of them as the facility manager. And I had the responsibility back then of putting in, running the tank farm operation, but also putting in the necessary infrastructure, piping and facilities, and all the procedures and training, et cetera, to make the first transfer of high-level waste from that tank farm to the vitrification plant at Savannah River, 1990. It actually happened in 1996. So fast forward to 2025, November of 2025, I get to be able to run the facility that makes the first transfer of waste to the direct feed low activity waste facility, the vitrification facility at Hanford. And for me, that's a full circle moment. It really is. And so it really is a pivotal historical point in time, because now my mission is about continuous operation, being able to have all of the systems operate as efficiently and optimized as possible to keep him happy. And my job is to keep Brian happy. He has all the waste he needs to make glass logs.
I've seen him unhappy. You don't want it.
He's generally pretty happy, but generally. So anyway, I just wanted to share that because it's a very special point in time for me in my career. A bit about our mission. We have one job, and our one job is to get waste out of tanks. One job. We have 177 waste tanks, all with varying types of waste, different chemistry, different density and consistency. And so there's a lot of work to do. Just last year, we completed retrieval on the 22nd waste tank. So we got a lot more ahead of us. Our efforts are focused at the tank farms is divided into 4 quadrants: northeast, northwest, southeast, and southwest. The southeast and southwest quadrants are the areas where our work is focused. The southeast quadrant is what is feeding waste to VIT now. The southwest quadrant is what Ray talked about, where we eventually will have a very large pretreatment facility there, and we'll be taking waste out of those tanks through pretreatment and sending to some grout facility, whether that be on-site, off-site, to be determined. So the bulk of our efforts are continued operation in southeast, and ready to operate in southwest. The northeast and northwest will come some years down the road. Just a bit about the pictures here. The picture on the left with the crane and the big pump gives you a feel for the kind of infrastructure necessary to get waste out of tanks. And we're installing a pump there to be able to pump waste out. This particular tank, the tanks have various access ports in them. They're called risers, various access ports. In the retrieval process, sometimes those access ports are not big enough to put in the kind of infrastructure and pumping equipment necessary to do the retrieval operation. So on this particular tank, we actually had to cut a new hole in the top of a waste tank and put the pump in. Now, that's no easy task, right? And so, and all of the engineering required to make sure that the dome of that tank stays intact. So big effort, and this is one where active retrievals will be taking place. The next picture with the forklift there is a view of the tank side cesium removal columns. Okay, tank side cesium removal was an operation put installed and operated beginning just a few years ago. That is the pretreatment operation. So that's the ion exchange columns that take the cesium out of the waste, and then we stage it for shipment to vitrification. So critical operation. We'll need to operate pretty much around the clock with minimal outage time to be able to feed vitrification at the capacity necessary to keep VIT operating, but also to keep the tank retrieval process going. We have a regulatory commitment to retrieve 24 tanks by 2040. And all of those tanks require that kind of infrastructure. So that's no easy feat. It sounds kind of, well, why can't you do that faster and all of that? But it's all entails a lot of work and money. So tank side cesium removal, critical operation for feeding vitrification. We have 2 capital projects on the horizon. One in the east area and one in the west area, which are upscaled pretreatment plants. And those are in design right now. Construction begins later this year on one, next year on the other. Those will come online in the 2028 to 2030 timeframe. Again, continuing to feed VIT and pretreat to send to grout. Those are critical for getting waste out of the state of Washington. And then, as I like to say, what we do is important. How we do it is even more important. You know, the how we do it is about safety, about disciplined operations, and it's about the team. You know, to elaborate on Bob's point, that we don't do any of this work alone. We do it with teams, and the how we do it safely, efficiently, with good teamwork and collaboration is what will make us successful. we can have all the money in the world, but it's the how we do it that will really take us, forward into the future. And then on the picture on the right, one of my favorite pictures is we do a lot of celebrations as H2C, celebrating the how we got the work done. It's one thing to have the big accomplishments, and that's all great and wonderful, and that's what the mission that we're here to do. But it's the journey that we're on and recognizing our employees on the steps along that journey that really, will be meaningful. I tell employees, my little story about sending waste to DWPF at Savannah River and now sending waste to VIT. You get a few opportunities in your career that are quite memorable. And our employees get to experience those memorable opportunities and those memorable experiences. And through these celebrations, we reinforce that you're part of something great, and so just, we appreciate you and please know how important you are to the mission. So getting waste out of tanks, that's our gig, and we're on it. So with that, I'll turn over to the most important guy in the room. Yeah.
That's okay.
Most important guy.
Having together and read them out. So I'm Brian Hartman. I'm the project director for the waste treatment and immobilization plant for Barcelona. I've been out here now 2.5, almost 3 years, coming up on 3 years. Like Ray, 43 years ago, I joined the commercial industry when it was still going on. Right, so my first start was in commercial. I actually spent most of my career on the commercial side of things. Okay, nuclear power plants, fossil power plants, working oil, gas, and chemical refineries. And probably about 2015, my first introduction to government work. And it was actually helping the engineering team put together the plan for the direct feed low activity waste. So like Carol, it's really interesting to see full circle from starting with paper on direct feed at low activity waste to coming out here and actually being a part of actually seeing that vitrification process take hold. So as Ray said, last October, we actually vitrified the first low activity waste, which is a historic achievement in sort of the history of the Hanford plant. But it wasn't done with just our people. It was done with DOE contractor partners, the people that are working the project, the craft people that work the project, our regulators, our contractor partners. It really took a village to actually pull this together. And it's going to take that village to kind of keep the Hanford project, Hanford mission continuing to work. We look at that milestone that was decades in the making. There were thousands of people helping, people in the local community. As we talk about the work that TRIDAC, Carl and David, they've been supporting the Hanford mission for probably 30 years. Right. So again, a lot of people actually continuing to embrace that. All of our supporters from the procurements that are bought locally here have a lot of local involvement in the plant on a day-to-day basis. Local trade unions, local 598, all of those people actually are contributing to what we did with that mission last year and actually that historic achievement. So it's really good to get back out and make sure that people in the community recognize that it is the community that's making this happen. It isn't just the contractors, it's just the DOE. It's all of the people that we have doing the work out there at the plant on a day-to-day basis, and we'll keep going with that. It wasn't just a Bethel achievement. I really like the fact that Bob talks about it and Carol talks about it. H2C provides the waste for the vitrification plant to be able to vitrify. Bob talks about once we vitrify it in containers, he actually takes that and stores it for the long haul for the life of the mission itself. And Tom talked about all of the things, and he didn't really mention it. He talked about the water plant, but the safety and security of the VIT plant. Things like having the security office that actually oversees security at the site, having the fire department that's there for emergency responses. And trust me, we actually have more emergencies than I really would like to, see. But we prepare for those, we test for those, we actually have drills so that everybody knows what they're supposed to go do and they do it effectively. So when we actually do have an emergency, it's really good to actually see all of that coming together. And the real crux for me was that we did all of this work last year while keeping all of our people safe, keeping the community safe. That to me, that's one of the things that people talk about. Well, why can't you go faster? You couldn't get this done, 2 years earlier. We did it very diligently, very discreetly. We kind of tested the plant multiple different times before we actually even went live with radioactive waste. So I think sometimes the public doesn't get how focused we are on keeping things safe, making sure they actually go to work. So again, passing those messages along, it was a really great experience to actually see all of that happen. But as we say, we're not resting on our laurels. We got the first 26 containers done last year. We're turning on the beginning of the spigot now. We're actually increasing the production because we tested the systems now, right? We proved from the very beginning all the way to the end, we can go do this. So now it's about how do you actually go do it more efficiently, more effectively, and reduce that waste liability from the tank farms quicker to complete this mission faster. And that's what for 2026, on the DFLAW side of things, we're going to be working on doing that. Our teams are working every day at how do we get better? How do we get better? Maintaining that safe, deliberate focus on moving forward, but get better and get faster to go complete this mission as soon as we possibly can. Also, we actually, at the same time we are doing the direct feed law of vitrification, we are actually working on the high level waste facility and working on the engineering to do that. So we actually have plans for, last year, the high level waste team stepped up, continued their engineering design, looked to be done with the engineering design for high level waste in the 2027 summer time frame. If Ray gives me some more money, I may be able to come in early. And the reason we were able to accelerate it is that we actually work together with the teams. Look at what DFLAW did on the low activity waste. And we're taking all those lessons that we learned there, how to do things better and get it right the first time through, and still maintain that safety and security of doing the mission the proper way. We're also working with DOE to take it and look at those lessons and say, okay, here are all the requirements that was put in place for DFLAW, looking at HLW and say, do we actually need to do all of those things? Now that we learned from those, we say, hey, those things you didn't really necessarily need to do because they didn't have a value. So working with DOE, we're looking at those restrictions and sort of simplifying the HLW side of things so it can come online faster. So we know how to bring that plant online faster, and we can actually improve the HLW mission even further and faster as we go along with those things. I do want to say that, the other part of it is that we're going to be growing HLW because we've been doing engineering designs. And now the next phase, as we look forward, is going to be getting into construction and the completion of construction. So those type jobs will still be available. We're still going to be building that team to kind of make those things happen in the future as we look at it. But we still have things to go buy. So we'll be buying those from the local community. How do we develop people to sort of continue to do that mission as Ray talked about, longer term of making this area, the science and the construction industry that we have here, being able to build that up so that we keep our people in this region and actually have jobs, well-paying jobs for them to go to, and their kids can actually stay in the community as well. So for me, I think the biggest thing to kind of leave with you is that the Hanford team, as I see, are working together really effectively and really efficiently to sort of improve missions that of getting rid of the tank waste and then building for the future. Right, so it isn't just about getting rid of tank waste. It's about building the squad we need to actually continue to move to the future and continue to have the region grow, have other people come in and develop that next big thing that we're going to actually have for the Hanford mission. So that's it for me. Over to you, Carl.
There, I need the form. Sorry, Carl.
Thanks. I just want to thank all you guys. Obviously, you've both done this together before. I mean, just even the way that you give your presentations is a clear indicator of the way your companies work together. But, you know, for us, I try to kind of represent the community. Each one of you serve on our boards. You know, you make an investment from Treasury and your time and your talent, not just for you at the leadership level, but for your whole team to really give back to that community. I just want to say thanks because it really has been this long history of federal government, the contractors, the community working together to build the Tri-Cities place. You guys are a critical part of that. So I just wanted to start off with thanking you for that. Also, thank you for our sponsor for Donuts and Development today, Ballard Construction. Curtis, thanks for helping us out. Really appreciate that support. I want to start off with a couple questions, and then I know David's probably got some, and then we'll have time for a couple questions from the audience. But Carol, you talked about 30 years ago doing high level waste feed into a vitrification process at Savannah River. Can you tell us why we're 30 years behind? I think hopefully it's a softball question. I'm trying to. I think it's an easy answer, but I think it's because we have a broad audience here. A lot of people work at Hanford, but a lot of people don't know the difference in the way that the United States made plutonium between Hanford and Savannah River. Is that a softball question for you?
Well, I don't know. There's a lot of reasons why, but the priority was put at Savannah River to build the vitrification plant. And it wasn't easy to build either or easy to start up. So we kind of forget the journey there that took many, many years of construction, startup, commissioning, and into operation. So it wasn't a smooth road either. It was one of a kind.
Yeah.
And so there's that part. And then we have to keep in mind we're in a different regulatory environment here, which impacts some things. But for whatever reason, the government 40 years ago made the decision to build the first one at Savannah River.
I think to Carl's point, though, what he's driving at is that Hanford was the test bed for getting started and how you make plutonium, how you separate plutonium. Well, they went through a lot of processes that, okay, that didn't really work, but that created really difficult chemical results, right? And so said, okay, so the first one was the bismuth phosphate process, and there's some really nasty stuff we're gonna have to deal with because of that. And then we started another process in the redox facility, and then we said, okay, this is working and it's making plutonium, but there's got to be a better way. And then we finally landed on Purex. And so we've got all these different types of processes, made all these different types of chemicals, and we've mixed all these soups together. And by the time we got to Savannah River, they were only making Purex. So they've got a uniform way. And it turns out Purex is the easiest stuff to handle. And I think that's what you were kind of driving at, right?
But no, but I appreciate Carol's perspective as well. Just giving us that context, because I think that's the thing is like, there's this nationwide cleanup challenge that the nation's faced, and every site's different. I think that was a good perspective.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and the way they close tanks there is different than the way they close tanks here. So that the way we close tanks, and so there's that.
And it started with West Valley, the demonstration project at West Valley. That was all right, how do we actually do vitrification of this stuff, right? And that was a small, contained kind of project. And then I think the next one was, let's springboard it into Savannah River and make it bigger, and let's see how we do it there. And then we can learn what we learned there and roll that over into Hanford. That's kind of the thinking that went behind all of that.
We do have more tanks, way more tanks here, way more tanks for the reasons.
A lot more material here.
A lot more material.
A lot harder material to deal with.
Last question I wanted to ask all you guys is because I think, like, I've been here 6 years now, but COVID shut down, all the contractors, DOE went through early retirements, turned over a big portion of your workforce, and then with the administration changes, both on the DOE side, especially reduction in the number of people that are there. But how are we doing our workforce? I know it's been a past conversation, but can you kind of, from each of your company's perspective or from one Hanford perspective, how are we doing our workforce? What are the needs? Is it better than it was? And I think always asking the question, still haven't come up with a solution, but from a community perspective, how do we make those connections, from our local community, starting K-12, into skilled trades and crafts and degree programs to better prepare the future workforce? Like, how are we doing?
I'll jump out to begin with, I guess. I think if you were to look at every one of us as companies, I'd say probably 50% of our workforce is new in the last 5 to 6 years. In years past, my prior roles, we'd be talking about silver tsunami, it's coming, well, it's coming when. And we've, changed over a good chunk of our workforce. Which came with it and comes with it a whole lot of new cultural dynamics, some positive, some negatives, and everything. And I think we collectively dealt well with it if you were to look at how we safely perform that in all those areas. All that being said, we are now in a regular recourse of business changing over, only going to increase in popularity of our workforce as the commercial nuclear new builds and all things start becoming attractive to the folks that we're training and doing. So I think it's a never-ending cycle, and I think it's caring for our workforce. Carol talked about celebrating with our workforce, and it's a never-ending kind of battle of changing of the guards of people, and it's to be expected, right? As they grow up and they have opportunities to retire out, or we bring up new ones, it's going to be that way. And for us, it really is the emphasis working with the communities, with the local colleges, the universities, working with the trades to make sure that we're allowing that development up and in of that. And probably the strongest issue that we're having right now is skilled craft capabilities and our ability to bring in not journeymen, but the younger crafts guys when they're learning that, the dynamics of how that plays against the construction industry that's also paying them really well. So never ending. I think we're on top of it right now, moving well collectively. Our community is super supportive, at least what I've seen. So I'll shut up and let these guys add their pieces.
I like that, Carl, and you know that most of all the contractors are vested in our STEM education locally, our college education. We bring internships in. We're promoting, things like in the local trades, sponsoring people to actually, come up and work as apprentices, work out at the site as apprentices along with people. So you got to have that from the beginning all the way through, continue that. And then also it's the education, I think, of people of, I would put it this way, that at Hanford, on the site, there's almost any profession you want to be in, you could do it out there, right? Almost anything you want to go do. And not only you could do it out there, you have the opportunity out there to grow in that position. If you start out as an admin, you may want to go over to project controls. You may want to go do something different. And you can actually grow in the position. And I think most of the companies here have done and kind of built upon that aspect of building their people, giving them training and helping them kind of grow with us, which helps you sort of sustain that. I'm always an advocate of those. You still have to bring outside people in. And so this is sort of where it gets back to the community, though. You got to be a welcoming community for people to want to come here and stay. That's a great location. People are born here, they get it, right? They see how great this area is, and they don't want to leave. Right? So the issue is, how do you get people to come in and actually expose them to that when they haven't been here and actually see all of those opportunities? So you got to be able to go do that as well.
I'd like to make one observation that I had a couple of years ago. I was participating in a STEM thing, and we went out to Mattawa, and I think it was junior high school kids. I think there were maybe eighth grader kids. And they were really good kids and really energetic. And we were doing little science experiments and stuff for them. And as I'm working through the different kids coming to my station, I ask them, what do you guys think about Hanford? What do you know about Hanford? They're like, what's Hanford? I don't know what Hanford is. And like, when you drive into Richland, you ever drive into Richland? Yeah. You see all those industrial like buildings off to the left when you drive in? That's Hanford. They're like, oh, what is that? What do they do? Right. So, I mean, these kids don't really know what's out there. And I think that's something we got to do a better job of, is getting to these kids at a younger age and telling them there's a career for you. Here's a path. Here's how you get there. I think these STEM programs are a good way to facilitate that. And they need to really grow, and we need to, because, there seems to have been a push over the years that everybody needs to go to college. Everybody needs to go to college. It's like, boy, there's some really good jobs for people that can turn a wrench or weld a piece of metal, or that's a really good living doing that. And by the way, you got to be more than a then you got to be pretty bright to do some of that stuff. The HVAC, when your HVAC goes out now, anybody go out and try to figure out how to fix it? Yeah, you need a pretty smart guy to come in and fix your HVAC. So anyway, we really need to, I think, start pushing these trade kind of avenues for these folks, because that's a very rewarding career.
Carl, you mentioned what can we do, and I think the one thing that we can do is advocate. And I think it adds to what Ray just said, and that is we are each ambassadors to both the community and to the jobs within Hanford and even within reindustrialization. I can speak from experience. Both my girls had no intention of coming to Hanford, but one works for Brian and one works for DOE as a contractor. So while neither of them had intention to come from Hanford, the knowing that the opportunities exhibited or there as they went through college and when they started applying for jobs, both of them landed back in community, which for me and my wife is great. I get my kids within 7 minutes, or they have their own homes, they go over home and I can be there in 7 minutes. But I think it comes down to advocacy from everyone, because as a community, our community is great. So that advocacy makes a difference, and every employee down at the lowest level is an ambassador to that mission.
Just to add to the back end of that process, for the community part of it is, we're all working ourselves out of a job.
Yeah,
And Hanford, it's 50 years or 70 years, it's speeding up. And it isn't too far away. It's not today, but the day is coming where the Hanford workforce is now going to be thinking, where am I going next? And so, we talk about land reuse or commercialization or nuclear new builds in this area to keep people in our community. Is going to become important, because if you're in your 30s and 40s and you're starting to think, well, when I'm in my mid 40s, upper 50s, I'm going to be looking for employment elsewhere. People that are rooted to the community like Brian are going to get itchy and want to leave maybe way premature than what we would prefer them to leave, right? So for our own need, that connection to that dot becomes important from that, and it gets back to almost the advocacy to the community too, right? So.
And Bob, for those people, I got a job from other places.
Well, that's a great point, because each of you work for either a company or groups of companies that are global companies, right? And so,
Some people like that, some
Yeah.
people don't.
I'm nationwide.
Exactly.
Check that box.
Well, to the point, you have a chance to have a career ladder here with your company, or if you choose to, then there's those opportunities. I'm really pushed for time. I haven't even given David a question now. Hey, what do you got?
I guess one quick question, as somebody who's worked adjacent to Hanford and the Hanford mission since about 2008, and grew up here in the Tri-Cities and saw the Hanford mission evolve from the 80s to today. It's been interesting to see kind of how there's been ebbs and flows, and a lot of momentum builds and then change of course and things like that. But in all that time, I don't know that I've ever seen as much sort of positive momentum as we have right now, with glass being made and opportunities, just as Bob just said, kind of speed things up. Maybe instead of being completed with cleanup in 2086 or 2082, maybe sometime sooner than that. So I guess my one question for you all is, what do we do collectively to keep that momentum, that positive momentum going, and get us to the point where we are really looking at the end of cleanup and what comes next?
Deliver on our commitments. We've got the political chip in front of, the political chip of the waste treatment plant is operational, and now it comes down to delivering on the commitments across all of our ports. No matter which field it's in. Whether it's me in delivering on the fire station to ensure that we have the next space for protection of the Hanford site, or the rest of the missions, at the end of the day, is committing, delivering, and doing things cheaper, better, faster, and not dealing with status quo in my mind. There are new ways and new technologies that are going to evolve and have evolved. Look at AI today compared to what it was 5 years ago. That are keep pushing us forward. And if we get stagnant as leaders and can't see the future, then that's where we're going to have to challenge ourselves.
The other thing I would add to that is keeping up the focus on being high quality and being safe. Because those are the things that will trigger other people to come in and say, oh, wait a second, you guys don't know what you're doing, right? So you got to make sure that everybody, you get that message that, yeah, we want to go faster. Yes, we want to go push this, but you have to keep that high quality, high safety, key focus at the front of everything that you're doing.
I use a term all the time, probably not satisfied. I think it gets back to both of these. It's momentum. we're delivering, we're exceeding our commitments. I think it's being recognized that we're exceeding our commitments by the community and by the regulators that maybe didn't exist in the past. So there's a lot of pride and a lot of camaraderie and a lot of things that we're celebrating what we're doing. But the not satisfied part of it is the government expects, we as taxpayers expect us to do it more effectively, more efficiently, more rapidly, more safely, all combined together. And so how do we continue to build upon that? It's the not satisfied. It's making sure that we're showing and demonstrating the proud, because people need to understand that it's not in Hanford. And people like Winters, but Winters then got to be bar gets set higher every single year. You got to raise that bar every single year. Right?
Continuous improvement.
Yeah.
That's what we strive for. We strive for, as you say, doing what we do safely, doing it effectively, but if we can always, there's always ways to improve. There's always ways to streamline. There's always new technology. And there's, different things we have to embrace to try to, because the demands for the federal tax dollar are going to get bigger, right, as we go. And we're fortunate to get as much money invested into this as we do. We have major problems in this country with homelessness, with food insecurity, with mental health, drug addiction, all that kind of stuff. And that's what we're competing against for dollars. So we have to really show that we're making good progress and delivering good value for the money that the government is entrusting us with. We have to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. And I think the more we can show that and show that we're making real and sustained substantial progress, then that investment proves to be a good investment. So,
yeah, I would just add, I agree with everything that everyone else has said, but I just would add, this work takes a strong commitment and tenacity and perseverance. Our facilities mostly are old. The challenges are there, the workforce challenges. There's a lot of challenge. So you have to be committed. The leadership teams have to be committed, and you have to get all the employees committed in order to move it forward. So we capitalize on the momentum we have and ensure that there's kind of the rallying of the entire 10,000 person workforce to continue what we're doing so far.
You guys said it really well. And I think too, something that we're all working on together is, with the regulatory environment that you're in, are the ways that we can work together proactively, create some ownership on the regulatory environment too. Right? I think that would be great for all of us. And if we all share that same commitment to, here's this number with the gallons of waste and tanks that are out of Hanford, that over time we're going to see that steadily going. That's a shared goal.
Right. Appreciate that.
Share. We do have approval. We're going past the hour. I know we're going to Brandon, like we always stick to an hour, but we're going over because we haven't had any questions. So we're going to take one question from the audience. What do we got? Has anybody got a question teed up? Yeah.
Jim Nobauer, thank you for the update on Hanford. Apprenticeships. The building trades have apprenticeship programs. Most of them train their workers, members to be journeymen or journeywomen, journeypersons. Hanford, as far as internal metal trades, used to have an apprenticeship program, and that fizzled out for a variety of reasons. Prior to COVID, there was trying to revitalize the apprenticeship program, and they had a committee going with DOE, labor, and the contractors, and we're looking at the pilot program. COVID hit. I've retired and it's kind of gone by the wayside, but I haven't heard. Is that something that Hanford DOE and the labor unions have talked about again, internal to the metal trade workers to start an apprenticeship program?
Music to my ears, Jim. We've talked about it, but I don't know that we've really progressed it much at this point.
So Jim, everything you said is factually accurate. There has been some internal dialogues with Hamtech that said, would there be interest in revitalizing that? It hasn't gained any more momentum other than an internal conversation. I'll say contractor president to metal trades. It hasn't gained back up to steam that it had in the past yet. So
that's certainly a big expectation of mine, though. I would love to see that. I think we need that. I think we absolutely need that. We need to, Brian, like he said, he's creating a great conduit for these youngsters to get into the business through their apprenticeship program, and we need to expand that across the whole Hanford site, I think. So yeah, whatever we can do, working with our folks there at Hampstead, we'd love to see that happen. Anything you can, anything you can do to help? Looking for something to do in your retirement?
I'll put some jab in.
There we go. All right, well, I think that's gonna do it for us today, but for a whole group here, this is the biggest group that we've ever had, so you guys were great. We proved that we can have, 7 chairs out here. Yeah, we're taking steps too. We gotta show that forward progress, just like one Hanford.
Actually pretty comfortable.
Yeah. Keep working on it. Thanks to Fowler Construction for sponsoring us today. Thanks for everybody for joining us in person, and thanks for everybody online. We're gonna be back on the second Tuesday in February. I think it's the 10th. 10th?
Yep.
10th, and we're gonna talk about shoreline reconveyance. So it's an initiative that David's setting up for us, along with all of our local partners and jurisdictions and our local Native American tribes, on working legislation through Congress eventually to be able to get the shoreline back from the Corps of Engineers through all of our Tri-Cities jurisdictions. So it'll be a good discussion. Join us again on the 10th. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.